Chief Justice, members of the court, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the White House, and thank you for coming to witness this historic occasion.
In 1988, when Justice Kennedy got on the Supreme Court, he was very much on the vanguard of legal conservatism, and he's more or less stood in place as the rest of the GOP has moved further and further to the right. So while that makes him very conservative, it means that he's been a firewall against the very far right on the court on a number of very important issues. So here are 5 places where we could expect the law to change very fast now that Kennedy is gone. So let's start with the big one.
First, in number 70, 18, Roe against Wade.
Roe v. Wade is going to die. There's a big question about how it's going to die. The court might not write the words Roe v. Wade is overruled. They may simply put states in that make it too expensive to operate an abortion clinic, or that make it so that it's impossible to get the credentials you need to be a doctor who can perform an abortion. But one way or another, legal abortion will now almost certainly cease to exist in many states where the lawmakers oppose it. Kennedy was really conservative on race, but on a number of issues, he was significantly to the left of the other 4 Republican appointees. He preserved a key aspect of the Fair Housing Act, which protects against race discrimination in housing. Justice Kennedy preserved some shell of affirmative action, so there can still be a degree of race-conscious admissions in universities. These holdings are likely to go away, and the new center of gravity in the court is going to be Chief Justice Roberts, who calls for a sort of rigid blindness to the fact that racism still exists in America. On LGBTQ rights, Justice Kennedy was a relative moderate. He didn't just author the marriage equality decision, he authored the Lawrence decision, which said that gay people have a right to have sex. There is no longer a majority for the proposition that gay people can have sex. So with Kennedy gone, there's an open question as to whether the court will honor its past precedents or whether they will wipe away pretty much every decision they have handed down, saying that if you aren't straight, you're still a full human being and you have access to certain basic rights. The one other thing worth noting is that trans rights are a relatively new issue for the Supreme Court, and with Kennedy gone, there's virtually no chance that there's going to be a majority to hand down good trans rights decisions. So another closely related issue is that Justice Kennedy recently said that in nearly all cases, a religious objection to following an anti-discrimination law does not exempt you from that law. So if you don't want to serve a couple because they're gay, tough. If the law says that you can't discriminate, you can't discriminate. Now that Kennedy's gone, there are probably going to be 5 votes on the Supreme Court to say that people who have religious objections to civil rights laws don't have to follow those laws. And then there's one other thing. With Kennedy on the court, there was a majority for the proposition that you cannot execute people who committed offenses when they were children, and that you couldn't execute the intellectually disabled. Now that he's gone, those decisions could be wiped away, and America could start executing people for things they did when they were kids.
The Senate stands ready to fulfill its constitutional role by offering advice and consent on President Trump's nominee to fill this vacancy.
Going forward, there are 51 Republicans and only 49 Democrats in the Senate. So unless 2 Republicans break ranks, Trump is probably going to be able to put up anyone he wants in order to fill this vacant seat.